Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, finally back in Montreal. And yes, it is good to be home. I don't think I've ever traveled this much in my life, to tell you the truth. It all started with the NHL draft, which took place in Las Vegas, of course, in the last week of June. And I spent a good 6 days there. And I think it was 4 or 5 days after that, I left for a family vacation in Samana in the Dominican Republic. And after 1 week in Samana, when I got back, 2 days later, I left for Spain. I was there for a month, and I got back to Montreal earlier today. So it's good to be back. I'm happy to be back. The Sick Podcast you're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America. Driven to be different, also brought to you in part by those guys right there, Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for the hot summer days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. I would go to my fridge right now and actually grab a can to show it to you as to what it looks like. But unfortunately, I'm doing this show in my boxers. And I have a feeling that if I get up and I do that, I'm going to go viral for reasons that I don't want to. Also brought to you in part by Playground. Discover a world of luxury at Playground. Explore the 30,000 square foot expansion with thrilling games, gourmet dining, and live entertainment located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground experience the strip without the trip. Mind you, if I would get up, the people from manmadebrand.com would be really, really happy right now because it's their boxers that I'm wearing for this particular occasion. Anyway, I digress. Without further ado, we'll bring him in. He's usually a collaborator during the hockey season on Wednesdays. And it even continues here in the summer from TSN, their hockey analyst and director of scouting, Craig Button. How are you?
I am great, Tony. And sounds like you had a fantastic trip over in Spain. And I hope your son is settled in.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see him play? Did he get some playing time on the pitch?
He got in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, he got in the last couple of minutes. And it's funny because his team was down 1-0. And he started warming up at around minute 68 or so. And probably another couple of minutes, and he was probably going to come in. And then all of a sudden, I think in a span of 6 or 7 minutes, his team scored a couple of goals. So they didn't make a change, and I can understand that. And he came in with the score 3-1. There was a couple of minutes left, but he got his first couple of minutes of pro soccer. And myself and my wife and my eldest son were in attendance to watch it. So we're very happy. We're very ecstatic.
That's awesome. You know, I have seen so many instances where parents come in and watch their son or their daughter play their first professional game or their first game as an Olympian, which is pretty significant. And the excitement that, you know, it's a dream, right? You want to be an Olympian, you want to be a pro player. Yeah. And then the joy to see your child beginning to achieve that and to feel it. It really is something special, Tony. Yeah. So for you and your family, congratulations.
Thank you very much. You know, when he was called to go warm up, we looked at each other and said, this might be it. And we're able to see him get in for a couple of minutes. So it was fun. It'll be a development year for him once again, as we talked about it. First year, 19-year-old playing with men. You got to get a little bit bigger, got to get a little bit stronger, got to gain a little bit of experience, but he's in a good place. He's got a great coach. He's got really good teammates who are willing to help him out. And he's kind of like He's kind of like a student at Harvard right now, right? He's learning from some very, very competent people. So it's good. It's really good. And it's really good that the Montreal Canadiens made a trade to acquire Patrik Laine, because it gave us something to talk about over the past couple of days, and it's probably going to give us another week or 2 weeks or maybe even 3 weeks of material here. But it looks like everyone's got an opinion. A lot of people were shocked that it was the Montreal Canadiens who were able to make the move. They weren't shocked that Patrik Laine was dealt. I think it was pretty clear by everyone that he didn't want to be back with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it didn't look like they wanted him back either. There are, with the days going by now, there's some information that's starting to filter out, and one of it was that the Canadiens were the only team in the National Hockey League that were willing to absorb the entire salary. A, are you surprised by that? B, if you were the Canadiens, would you have stayed away knowing that you would have had to absorb the entire salary for another couple of years?
I'll answer the second question first. No, I wouldn't have stayed away. And I'll tell you why I wouldn't have stayed away. The Montreal Canadiens, there's going to be different stages of their build. I'm just going to call it building. They're trying to build, and they're trying to build to be number one, a competitive team, and then a contending team. And there's going to be different stages to that. So when you look at the Montreal Canadiens, I'm going to look at two areas of their team. They were 26th last year in the NHL in goals for. They were 27th on the power play. Patrik Laine is a goal scorer. I have never, ever, not once, ever heard a coach or a manager say we have too much scoring. I've heard lots of managers and coaches say we don't have enough scoring. So Patrik Laine has shown unequivocally that he can be a really good goal scorer and somebody that can score at will. I mean, he's shown that capability and that productivity. So for me, no. You work to create openings on your lineup with your roster management. You also work to create openings on your roster with your financial management. So that's what the Montreal Canadiens do here. I don't think that anybody would say that they weren't interested in Patrik Laine, but we're in this thaw with the salary cap. It increased this year. There'll be more of a thaw next year. And because teams for the last 4 seasons had to manage the cap real tight. So it doesn't surprise me that teams might not have had the flexibility or the open financial template that the Montreal Canadiens had to take on the full contract. But when the Columbus Blue Jackets look at it and they go, okay, what's our best offer there? And I am guessing because I don't have the knowledge, probably teams might be saying, well, we'll give you a second round pick and a prospect. The Columbus Blue Jackets are getting Jordan Harris. They're getting a good, solid player that's going to play on their back end. And I think that becomes a factor. And, somebody that doesn't want to be there and wants to move on, you also satisfy that as well. So to go back to the first part of and I think I answered the first part too, just teams are tight right now. And when I say tight, they're tight up against the cap. That's why working on flexibility, understanding where you're at at the different stages of your team development and your team construction becomes really important. And the Montreal Canadiens are a team that can benefit from more goal scoring. Patrik Laine comes in, that takes pressure off of Cole Caulfield. Kirby Dach comes back healthy, that takes pressure off of Nick Suzuki. What you're trying to do is make your team harder to play against. Harder to play against doesn't mean just physically. It also means, how are you going to defend? How are you going to load up? Now you're going to have to think about different lineup combinations that Marty St. Louis can use, not just at 5-on-5, but also on the power play. And the other thing too, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Patrik Laine is also 6'4".
He's a big boy. I actually saw him listed at 6'5", but whether it's 6'4",
he might be 6'5".
He's a big man. You're right. Probably about 215 or 220. He definitely makes the Montreal Canadiens bigger. There's no doubt about it. Speaking of scoring, there's a chart that we brought up a couple of days ago with Grant McCagg, which was put up there originally by Stéphane Leroux of RDS. I have to tell you, Patrik Laine is an impressive company when we talk about most goals under the age of 20. Let's not bring it up just yet. Oh, we did. Okay. Who would you say, Craig? Most goals under the age of 20?
Well, I mean, I know what Patrik Laine did right from the beginning of his career. I mean, he was in Winnipeg. Austin Matthews was in Toronto. Those two players had this magnificent back and forth when they were playing versus one another. They went 1-2 in that draft in 2016, and then they came into the NHL and grabbed it. You know, so it doesn't, like, I know that Patrik Laine was an elite scorer as a teenager. He was an elite scorer as a teenager.
Top, I think he's fourth. Let's bring up the chart. Most goals under the age of 20. Wayne Gretzky, 106. Jimmy Carson, 92. Dale Howardchuk, 85. Patrik Laine, fourth overall in NHL history for the most goals with 80 goals under the age of 20. Bellows, Crosby, and Stamkos rounding out the top 7. That's some pretty elite company, huh?
Well, it is. But, you know, number one, that's why he went second overall. That, you know, he didn't score those goals by accident, and that's why, to me, he's such an interesting acquisition by the Montreal Canadiens. You know, Patrik Laine was still scoring 40 or 45 goals, you know, like he was doing early on in his career in Winnipeg. He wouldn't be available, but you know, different things happen with players. Good players get traded all the time, and to me, sometimes you just have to look at it. One of the things that came out was that Don Waddell gave Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes, and Marty St. Louis an opportunity to talk with Patrik Laine about what he could expect in Montreal, what they were doing, kind of a get to know each other type of meeting. I think that becomes really important. Montreal Canadiens have really good contacts around the NHL, in the amateur ranks, around Europe. So they'll tap into all those things. Now they get to talk to Patrik. Patrik gets to say, okay, here's where I'm at. You know, they get to ask him, okay, why do you think your production fell off? What do you think you need? What excites you about Montreal? On and on and on it goes. But I think this was pretty thorough, and it should be thorough because that's just the requirement in doing the job. We're talking about somebody that has elite scoring ability. Elite scoring ability. Why wouldn't you be interested? Why wouldn't you take the opportunity to acquire him? I think it's a great acquisition by the Montreal Canadiens. You heard me say this on previous shows. The Montreal Canadiens have all the shelves stocked in the prospect cupboard. They have different types of players, and I said, all of them, even players that were on the team, are not going to play for the Montreal Canadiens. You're going to look to use some of those players to acquire other types of players. This is a perfect example of it.
Graham McCagg brought this up the other day, and I said, that's a good point. And his question was, can you recall the last time the Montreal Canadiens had a player, a forward on their team that was drafted first overall, Slafkovsky, second overall, Laine, third overall, Kirby Dach, 1, 2, and 3 overall? And I said, I can't remember.
No, I mean, I can't. I mean, I know they had Réjean Houle and Mark Tardif at one time who went 1 and 2, but I can't think of a number 3 pick that was in there. But yeah, again, you look at how you're trying to build your team. And, like I said, good players get traded. Good players get traded all the time. In the history of the NHL, good players have been traded. You think about, Brian Bellows. Brian Bellows was a high pick. He got traded to the Montreal Canadiens from Minnesota. Was part of the '93 Stanley Cup team. So, you think about, a player and our team in Minnesota. I was with Minnesota when he was traded to Montreal. We were looking to build our team in a different way. And the Montreal Canadiens, Serge Savard is looking at Brian Bellows, a really good goal scorer. Says we can use that. They had other things in place, and it's just another. I mean, that's a long ago example, and this just brings it back to light that you got to be ready. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens traded for Bobby Smith.
Yeah. By
First
the way,
overall pick.
Yeah, in the 2019-2020 season, the Canadians had Kovalchuk drafted first, Drouin and Kotkaniemi drafted third. But given the age of the players that we just talked about, Slafkovsky, Laine, and Kirby Dach, who are under the age of 26, I mean, the potential of these three players right now, this is huge. Like, I don't know if I've ever been as excited to watch a Canadians and their offensive players. I don't remember when was the last time I was more excited, really. I mean, I think you got to go back to well, it was pretty exciting when they won the Cup in '93 with Don Foose and Bellows and Kirk Muller and company. But it's been a while. It's been a while since I was this excited.
Well, I mean, I think when I watch how Montreal has gone about their business, shall we say, and the transparency, here's what we're going to do. You know, Jeff and Kent have been very clear about time frames. They're not going to be squeezed into outside time frames. They have their own time frames. They're not locked into it. It's not like they're rigid on it. They're saying we're going to continue to evaluate. We're going to watch how some of the players develop. We're going to continue to work on acquiring players and helping our young players develop. And then when opportunity arises, Kent has said that for a number of years now. He said when opportunity arises and the timing is right, then we can try to look at how we can improve the team. And certainly the Chicago Blackhawks, when they traded Kirby Dach at the draft in Montreal, that was something they were ready to take advantage of because Chicago was moving in a different direction. New general manager in Columbus. Patrik Laine is not happy there. Another opportunity to take advantage. Like, you know, I hear this all the time, Tony.
Yeah.
I hear managers in the NHL talk how hard it is to make a trade. Oh, really? Isn't it your job to improve the team and make trades? Don't tell me how hard it is. Do your job. Do your job. That's the Bill Belichick line. Do your job. And if I was an owner and I heard my manager saying how hard it is to make a trade, I'd say, listen, maybe I should get somebody else to do it because it seems to be too hard for you.
Yeah. You know what? Mark Bergevin at the time talked about it's not easy to make trades. And look, it's not easy, but at the same time, that's why it's one of the most prestigious positions in all the sport, being the general manager of a hockey team, number one. Number two, that's why there's only 32 of those jobs. Number three, they're supposed to go to the 32 best in the world. And number four, that's why they make millions of dollars, because they're doing a job that's not easy. It's difficult. So, you know, that's what I say to that. Now, we asked the other day, once the Canadians made the trade, we said, you know what, one word. Give us one word. How are you feeling? And I have to tell you, inside my inbox, and I got a lot of messages saying, as much as there were a lot of messages of excitement, I got a lot of them from people saying mistake. I know you can't look into your crystal ball, but is this a mistake? And for people who think it is, mistake in what sense exactly? Mistake in they're going to have 8.7 on the cap for the next couple of seasons and he's not going to be able to produce to an 8.7? Or how concerned are you whether or not this is a mistake?
I got to be honest with you, Tony. I'm surprised when you say that word showed up so often in your inbox. Again, I'm going to go back to it. So a mistake. You want to sit on your hands. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to take a risk. Here's and go back to what I said earlier. You manage your team. You got to manage the personnel part of it. You got to manage the financial part of it. I think the Montreal Canadiens, under the Gorton Hughes administration, have done that really well. Now, an opportunity to go and acquire a player comes about. And Patrik Laine, I just said, Montreal was 26th in the league last year in goal scoring, and they were 27th on the power play. So, you know, what do you want to do? Do you want to try to take your team up a level? Do you want to try to get your team up to a higher notch? That, to me, is where you have to take risk. So you're not taking a risk on a high-priced player that hasn't shown that he's more than capable of being an elite goal scorer. So I fail to see how you look at this and say it's a mistake. am I going to tell you there's not a certain amount of risk to it? Yeah, there's a certain amount of risk to it. But you got to look at it in terms of, okay, what did we give up? What are we getting? Have we impeded ourselves in other areas that are going to prevent us from growing? I say, no way they've impeded themselves. I think they've given themselves an opportunity to improve and be better. And now it's up to Patrik Laine to come in and show that he can do that.
All right. The pressure in Montreal. Out of all the concerns, I mean, this is my number one concern. I brought up Drouin the other day, and Grant said it was a completely different situation. Drouin is from La Belle Province, number one. Number two, the Canadiens gave up an awfully big piece to acquire Drouin. Number two. Number three, the second he came in, they signed him to a big contract. Everybody remembers that. 6 years, $33 million. Number four, whatever, they put him at center ice. List goes on and on and on. And I get that, and I agree with all that, right? But even though everyone knows his reality and he's coming out of the players' assistance program and he's been struggling over the last couple of years, there's going to be an expectation that this guy's going to rebound. This guy has to put up a lot of goals. The pressure of playing in Montreal, I know he said he's looking for a market like this. He's looking for an environment like this. Only he knows whether he's telling the truth or not. But when you hear that, he's looking for an environment like this. What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I watched him perform at the 2016 World Junior Championship that Finland won, the gold medal on home ice. All the greats from Finnish hockey were there. There was an expectation on that team to deliver. And boy, did they deliver. Boy, did they deliver. They delivered in a big-time way. And I don't think that Patrik Laine has any problem being in the spotlight. He, in that year, in that 2016 draft, like, he was playing in the Pro League. I mean, up until that point in time, it was all about Jesse Puljujärvi, and Jesse Puljujärvi was a good prospect.
Yeah,
it didn't turn out good for Jesse, but for Patrik to be in that spotlight and to be doing the things that he was capable of doing, massively impressive in my view.
All right, okay, but at the same time, and I discussed this with Pierre Maguire a couple of days ago, players that come out of the Players Assistance Program, there aren't many that rebound. Now, Jonathan Drouin just did with Colorado. Mind you, he's playing with one of the best players in the world, and the pressure, I would imagine, in Colorado is much less than it was in Montreal. Pierre Maguire noted that Thierry Fleury was able to rebound and respond after spending time in the Players Assistance Program. But for the most part, I'd be willing to bet that players that spent time in the Players Assistance Program, not many of them were able to regain their old form.
So what do we so does, I mean, again, what does player assistance mean?
It means a player has a problem and he seeks help.
That's exactly right. Like, Spencer Knight, who was a high draft pick by the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
He entered the player assistance program because he had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And he recognized that and he said, I need some help with it. I think there's a negative connotation to the player assistance program. So again, I'm going to go back to Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes and Martin St. Louis going through it. Like, every individual, every situation is different. So I don't know why Patrik Laine was in the player assistance program, but there's a negative connotation to it. I'm going to be very clear here, Tony. I think this is a risk well worth taking for the Montreal Canadiens. They're not locked into 8 years with him. They're not locked in to $12 million. He's been an elite goal scorer. The Columbus Blue Jackets were a disaster during his time there. A disaster. It's amazing that anybody could perform with any level of happiness in Columbus as badly as it was managed and everything in there. Patrik says, I don't want any part of that. He recognized that he had an issue and he wanted to address it. We should be celebrating Patrik Laine.
Good stuff, Craig. All right, okay. If you read some of the pieces once again coming out of Columbus, there was like, if the Canadiens didn't acquire Patrik Laine, there was a risk of the Columbus Blue Jackets locker room becoming poisonous. It leads you to believe that Laine was not unanimous with his teammates. At the same time, the guy who knows this guy probably better than anyone else in the National Hockey League is the guy who was part of the Winnipeg Jets organization and the Columbus Blue Jackets organization as a head coach of the American Hockey League affiliate, as an assistant coach, as the head coach of the NHL team. That's Pascal Vincent, who's now the head coach of the Laval Rocket, the Montreal Canadiens affiliate. I mean, there's got to be no doubt, obviously, that the Canadiens talked with Pascal Vincent and said, tell us absolutely everything you know about Patrik Laine. I would imagine that if Pascal said, this guy is not good for a locker room, this guy is not good with his teammates, this guy is not good for team chemistry, I'd be willing to bet they don't make a trade for this guy.
Well, I'll dip into my pocket too and make that bet with you. Kent and Jeff are too thorough. They're too thorough. So to me, I concur with you 100%. Again, risk reward, and you're looking at a player that has a tremendous skill set, and he's also acknowledged that he needed some help in whatever he was looking to try to address. And Pascal Vincent, who was there, listen, I say this all the time, Tony. I am so sick and tired of hearing about players that bad attitude, you can't win with them. You know who you couldn't win with? The Columbus Blue Jackets and the mess of a management and ownership they've had in there for years. They had like last summer. Give me a break. Players should be going, I don't think I can win in Columbus with this group. Why do you think Don Waddell's the new GM? It's a joke.
Tell us how you really feel, Craig.
Yeah, I say it.
No,
I'd love a player to go, hey, you know what? I don't think I can win here with this coaching or this type of management or this type of ownership.
So
what has Columbus been in this league? You know what they've been? They've been a game on a schedule. And that's all they've ever been since they entered this league in 2000.
Pretty strong words, but I have to tell you, pretty accurate. I mean, they have not, if you have to say if the Columbus Blue Jackets, since they've been in the National Hockey League, whether they've passed or they failed, they failed.
Oh, massively failed.
Yeah, they definitely have. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter who the general manager is or who the head coach is. They fail. So now let's just say, for whatever reason, Laine's arrival has a negative impact on the locker room. Are you stuck when you sign a player like when you acquire a player like that for a 2-year deal? Or because I'm sure that Jeff and Marty and Kent, they sat down and they said, okay, we have a really good locker room in Montreal. It's one of the things we're very, very proud of. It's a tight group. What if it disrupts the group?
Well, then what I would say is you don't have a very strong group.
Great answer.
And I think they have a strong group. I don't think that again, I'm going to go back to the administration of Gorton and Hughes. They know what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think they're executing very nicely on a lot of fronts. And they're not here to try to impede or to put roadblocks in front of the growth of the team or the individuals. And to your point earlier, Tony, I mean, you're doing the research. You're working at it. Jeff Gorton has been in the NHL for a quarter of a century.
Yeah.
Kent Hughes has been around the league for a quarter of a century. Marty St. Louis has been around the league for a quarter of a century. Now, that's just 75 years. I'm going to trust that those 3 guys can tap into just about anywhere they would like to find out about a player, not just Patrik Laine. And we can play the what if game forever. We can play that game forever. Are there some unknowns? Yeah. Are there some uncertainties? Yeah. I don't feel that the Montreal Canadiens would have ever made this trade if they had questions about Patrik Laine's character or Patrik Laine's ability to fit into a dressing room, or the strength of the group to support Patrik Laine.
Marinaro, shout out to Manta Sleep. Check it out. It's a sleep mask. It'll basically block out any light that you'll see for a very, very deep sleep. It's infinitely adjustable. You can get a personalized fit. It's very, very comfortable. And once again, if you go to mantasleep.com, you use code SICKHABS, and you'll get 10% off. All right. Probably the last question here. Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky have obvious chemistry. Would you at all tinker with that, with the arrival of Patrik Laine?
I think that probably Marty St. Louis is probably already thinking about different tinkering opportunities that might occur. I don't think you have to start off by starting, okay, we're going to do this and do that. More good players. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I've never heard a coach ever say we have too much skill, we have too much scoring. You know, they want to be able to expand their ability to impact the game. I'm talking about coaches with better players. Ask Marty St. Louis how he felt last year when Kirby Dach got hurt, and then he was going to be out for the whole year. That's a gut punch. And so now you're without Kirby, but you're also watching Juraj Slafkovsky grow, and you're watching Nick Suzuki grow, and then Cole Caulfield grow in other ways. Now you're thinking, well, we got Kirby Dach back healthy. We got Patrik Laine now. I think it helps Josh Anderson. I think Josh Anderson can slide into an area now where he can just play to his strengths and do what he's doing.
You're right.
There's going to be times over the course of a game, over a course of a period of time in the season, where you're going to want to switch things up and try some different things.
Yeah.
And I think when you have good players, that is an opportunity that coaches relish. They don't have to say, yeah, we're going to do it, but they're going to consider different ideas. I go back to my own experiences, and you think about different players, and you think about how they fit in different areas.
Yeah.
And you're always thinking about, okay, this player fits with him, but he could help him. Okay, we'll take him away for a little stretch. That's just the fluid part of coaching, and depending on what you're trying to do within a particular period of time, whether it be in a game, whether it be in a stretch of games, I think that's a positive for the coaching staff.
It's part of an 82-game season where a lot of guys go into slumps, and teams end up going into a slump, and they end up losing 2, 3, 4 hockey games in a row, and a bunch of guys go scoreless, and all of a sudden the coach is looking for solutions, so he decides to change up the puzzle a little bit. Marc Bergevin is the one who gave Nick Suzuki the 8-year deal at $7.875 million a year. And it seems like, even though Kent Hughes, I don't think he's ever said it, it seems like he wanted to maintain a structure where Nick Suzuki was that highest paid player in the Canadiens, because when he gave Cole Caulfield an 8-year deal, it was at $7.85 million, just below Suzuki. And when Juraj Slafkovsky got his 8-year deal, it's at $7.6 million. And I would imagine that Kent Hughes thought about, if we bring in Patrik Laine and he carries a salary of $8.7 million over the next 2 years, will that have some kind of effect on the other players where Suzuki was the standard and he was paid the most? And obviously, ultimately, Gordon and Hughes decided that it wasn't going to be a factor, and they pulled the trigger and they made the move. So far, you haven't been worried about anything, and you're saying, you know what? It was worth it. He's a premium goal scorer. Those are few and far between. They're scarce. You make the move. And yeah, he probably wasn't perfect, but Columbus definitely wasn't perfect either. And I agree with you, by the way, and I said this, I don't care how the trade ends up. It could end up great, and I hope it does. But if it doesn't, for me, they're going to be able to make the room. They have the flexibility. It's part of their plan. I'm sure it's going to make season ticket holders very, very happy. Everyone always likes to see, a guy who can shoot a puck through a brick wall and score some goals. But in ending, one last question. Would that have concerned you? That here's a guy that comes in who struggled over the last couple of years, and now you're saying you're the highest paid player on my hockey team.
I think that you're thinking about everything when you're adding a player into your group, and that the financial factor comes in. Jeff and Kent were not the ones that signed under that contract. I would imagine that this was something that they talked about. But here to me is what ultimately comes. So we talk about, and this is overarching philosophy, we talk about players taking a discount. Everybody, take a discount to win. Take a discount so you're going to get more players, right? And players don't want to be seen as taking discounts. They want value for what they do, and they want to be paid what they think is relative to what their contributions are. And I get that. But when you add Patrik Laine, that should excite the players. That should excite Nick Suzuki. It should excite Cole Caulfield. It should excite everybody, because you're looking and going, geez, the management's not afraid to try to give us some help. They're not afraid to make a move. They're not afraid to take a step and inject a player that could be significant. Because ultimately, Tony, if you have the right people and you have the right competitors, there should be excitement around the addition of Patrik Laine. Don't forget, I talk about the 75 years of experience that Jeff and Kent and Marty, or even more, have in the NHL. The players also know who to tap into. They know who to talk to. They can turn to the players and understand around the league what a player offers to them. They know. And I don't think that goes by Jeff or Kent or Marty either. And certainly talking to your key leaders on your team becomes a factor in with respect to how you're trying to add and support and not disrupt your group. And I have every confidence that the Montreal Canadiens administration has done exactly that.
So the Canadiens management team, their head coach, the players, and the fan base are really excited to have Patrik Laine as part of their team. And as you know, I'm excited to have Craig Button as part of my team. Thanks, Craig. We'll talk to you soon, my man.
Yeah, thank you, Tony.
You're very welcome. Give us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love for Shane Gaumont and Master Control. Thanks for watching the Sick Podcast. I'm back in town. I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.